What happens when a classically trained New York City fine dining chef of Egyptian Bolivian descent writes a home cooking handbook that is steeped in 90s nostalgia? Well, you get Ham El-Waylly's Hello Home Cooking. Ham is a chef, a YouTube star, and now a cookbook author. And Hello Home Cooking is his playful new book with craveable recipes like toasted thin spaghetti with black beans and parm, tahini roasted swordfish, and pita cinnamon crunch, an easy-to-make grown-up version of the cinnamon toast crunch that I spent my entire childhood pining for. With Ham's writing, you also get a warm, knowledgeable, and funny companion in the kitchen. So on today's episode, Ham and I talk about how he eats at home these days with his wife, the beloved cookbook author and creator Sola El-Waylly. We talk about how he juggles his restaurant, Strange Delight, with the freelance and media projects he has going on. Spoiler alert, he has ADHD. And how healing and fun it has been to write this cookbook and put it out into the world. Whether you're already a Ham fan or this is the first time you're hearing from him, I think you're going to love this conversation.
This could happen to you. This could happen to you. This could happen to you.
Ham El-Waylly, welcome to Not From Concentrate.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Ham, before we dive into your wonderful book, Hello Home Cooking, I did want to just give the listener a little bit of an introduction to you and your background in case they're not familiar with your really rich culinary roots that we have Egypt and Bolivia and New York City. If you could kind of set the table here so we know how we got to this beautiful book.
Absolutely. I'll do like the really quick version. So my mom was Bolivian, my dad's Egyptian. They met at Howard University in DC, got married there, and then moved to Doha, Qatar, where they had me and my sister, which is where we were born and raised. Back then in the 90s, Doha was kind of transitioning into the very natural gas rich country that it is today. So I got to see that transition happen. And with that came this really diverse and rich international community, which meant that I grew up eating home cooking from all over the world. There aren't a lot of Bolivians outside of Bolivia, but my mom also studied in Brazil, and she lived there for a while, and we have some family there. And there was a very large Brazilian community in Doha, Qatar, just because of they're very, very into soccer. So they brought a lot of Brazilians over to coach their local teams. And so that's kind of the community I grew up around. A lot of Brazilians. I went to a lot of Brazilian parties. I was usually at a Brazilian's house every weekend. So that was kind of the community I grew up around. So all of this came together to form this culinary Rolodex in my mind, so that I just grew up eating a lot of different flavors, a lot of different cuisines. And when I moved to the United States, I had the intention of going into fine dining in New York. That's why I was here. That's what I wanted to do. And when I first moved here, I moved here alone when I was 19. And then the first summer, my mom came to visit me, and she was not well. She was struggling to breathe. She was coughing very, very erratically. And so we went to the emergency room. She was immediately admitted into the hospital. And then a few weeks later, she died pretty suddenly. So that kind of really shook me, just because it was very unexpected. And in my grief, I kind of cast aside a lot of the cooking and memories and links that I had to my childhood. And then I fully dove into the fine dining that I had immersed myself into. And that was very, very easy to do. It's very easy to get lost in kitchens in general, especially in fine dining, because it is such demanding work that you can just get lost in it. So I got lost in that for a long time until the pandemic hit. And then that is when I started to rediscover the food I grew up eating, because I had the only thing I wanted from my mom was her notebook. She had this Madonna notebook that she wrote all of her recipes in. And I had that with me, and I took it with me from place to place for years, but I never opened it and I never cooked out of it. Just having it close to me was comforting enough, but that was not enough during the pandemic. I really needed something to combat the uncertainty of the world, and then just get some kind of comfort. So I opened the book for the first time then, and I started cooking out of it. And that really just brought out that part of my brain that I kind of shut down for so long. And then that caused me to not just deal with what I was feeling then, but kind of deal with the grief that I had been carrying around with me for so long. And then as I cooked, I just started using the techniques that I had learned over the years, using the supermarkets around me. And then I started developing new versions of these recipes that I'd grown up eating. And then these form a lot of the recipes that are in the book. So the recipes that you find in the book are recipes that I cook at home currently for my family when I want to link my past to my present, or if it's just some fun, easy dishes that I could just get on the table while my dogs are barking, while my baby's screaming, and when you just need to make things happen.
Yeah, it's such a fun book. And, I was thinking a lot about how we went through this period of there being such like kind of SEO driven recipes or trend ingredient recipes. And many of the ingredients that have become more mainstream everyday grocery store items of the last few years are in your book. And I'm thinking about things like tahini and different kinds of sauces that we might cook all the time but didn't exist a few years ago for many people in many parts of this country. But what I think is so interesting about the way they show up here is there's so much storytelling around it. There's so much personal connection. And so it really like invites you into the book because it doesn't feel intimidating if you haven't cooked with these ingredients before, or if you've never put tahini on a piece of swordfish. It feels very comforting and welcoming, but it doesn't feel sanitized like it came out of some like SEO media clickable thing. And so I think that's part of what makes it really special.
Thank you.
But I guess I'm wondering, what did it feel like to try to distill, you put it as a complicated background, but this really sort of rich background and this, home cooking tradition mixed with your restaurant sort of pedigree. What was that like, your work life and sort of like the mental journey you had to go on to funnel that into this really fun and accessible book?
I wanted it to feel really, I didn't edit myself very, very much. I very much wanted it to feel very honest and something that came from a very personal place. So I put myself into a headspace of what was I listening to in the 90s? What was I watching in the 90s? What was I reading in the 90s because I was kind of that's the timeline I want to evoke, that kind of nostalgia, that kind of really comforting time where a lot of us were kids. I watched a lot of 90s wrestling. I watched a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I listened to like Harvey Danger and Nirvana, a lot of Notorious B.I.G., a lot of things that I liked at that time because I wanted to get into that headspace. And then I just thought, like, what do I want to eat right now? What do I want to snack right now? What will make me feel good? What would make me feel excited? And then that's where I started. So I just started making a list of things that young Ham would like to eat. And then I kind of just extrapolated from there. And then that's a lot of how the stories were as well. I wanted people to not just think of it as a recipe, but I wanted it to come across as a moment in time, like a specific moment in time of just sharing this with me. Because I think food becomes a lot more exciting, a lot more delicious when there's something personal tied to it. I think that's why a lot of us hold the home cooking that we grew up with in such this special place. It's not really about the food. It's about the memories associated with the food. So I wanted to share my memories with other people so that they could see things through my eyes and kind of get these other layers to the dishes. Because I do think it is part of a dish, like the memories associated with them.
One of the recipes, and I'm annoyed that I'm going to this one first because I know I'm not the only one. It's I don't know if we can even say Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I heard your editor, the wonderful Francis Lamb, give you a hard time about it, but you have this, copycat recipe, for lack of a better word, for Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And I had heard, and forgive me, I'm forgetting if it was in the book or I heard you talk about it, but you were saying that you weren't allowed to have like sugary cereals except in the summer. And it spoke to me because I grew up in rural New Hampshire, but had the same experience of that was my
amazing.
favorite. That was my favorite cereal. We were never allowed to have sugar cereals except for this one trip that we took as a family every fall. And I have such core memories of we were allowed to pick out whatever crazy cereal we wanted. And I remember just like standing in front of that aisle at like Shaw's and being like, am I going to get the Boo Berry? Am I going to get the Cinnamon Toast Crunch? Like so much pressure. So that took me right back in time to that place. But I do want to talk about the specific recipe because it sounds so delicious. And I know so many people that crave Cinnamon Toast Crunch, or we can bleep that out however we want to talk about it. But can you talk about that recipe, what makes it special, and how we might go about tackling it ourselves?
Oh, absolutely. That is the one recipe I tell people to try out, because it's like it really encompasses what I'm trying to do with the book. I'm like taking this core memory and then turning it into this dish that's like pretty easy to put together, but has a lot of lasting impact. The thing with the Cinnamon Toast Crunch, I doctored a box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch to say Cinnamon Pita Crunch, which is the recipe in the book. And we actually had to edit that box out in the cookbook because legal said we couldn't use it. So I think we can say Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I just can't doctor a box and put it in a cookbook.
Fair.
So yeah, growing up, like I'm happy to hear that was your experience. A lot of other people had that experience as well. I'm finding out where during the year, no sugary cereals, no fun snacks. Like you save that for the family vacations. So I found a loophole where I would make my own Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So I would just cut up some pita, toss it in some olive oil, toast it in the oven until they got really, really crisp, and then toss it in cinnamon sugar. That was my like quick cinnamon pita crunch, the version 1. Now, Sola taught me the glory that is saltine bark, which is one of the greatest contributions of American gastronomy that there is. So it's like saltines covered in this brown sugar caramel that you bake until it bubbles, and then you slather some chocolate on top. And then when it cools down, it's this beautiful caramelly, crunchy, chocolatey, incredible thing. So Sola makes it every Christmas now because it's one of my favorite things. So I wanted to apply that technique to the cinnamon pita crunch. So we dice up the pita into cubes, toast it. And what's amazing is if you get the right pita, the thin one, not the fluffy one, after you toast it, they look like little cubes of cereal. It's amazing. So we take that, toss it in a cinnamon brown sugar syrup, bake it again. And then when you take that out, it's encased in this very light shell that just stays so crisp, even if you keep it in milk. So it's that amazing texture of like wet crunchy that's so elusive but so satisfying to eat. It's like what makes Korean chicken wings so much fun to eat, because it's like you've got this wet sauce and it's still crunchy. It's like sorcery. So it's that kind of thing. And then you toss it in cinnamon sugar again, and it's like it is an uncanny swap for Cinnamon Toast Crunch, only better, because especially I found that if you use like a whole wheat pita, you get this other layer of nutty flavor that's just fantastic.
I cannot wait to make it. I cannot wait. And you just brought up Sola, your wife, who is of course a beloved and prolific food writer, food personality. I love her Substack. But I have a note here that just says partner, cook, kid, how? Because in my house, I have 2 little kids. The division of labor there's like pretty clear because I love to cook. I'm a cook by trade. My husband is a scientist. He does the family admin. He makes the doctor's appointments, but the man like does not know how to turn on an oven. So I was thinking about your family, and you have a young child. You both have big careers. Like what does the feeding of the family look like in your household?
I think it looks a lot like a lot of people's. Like now that we have a kid, it's not to say that cooking is less pleasurable, but we cook less for pleasure and more for health and nutrition and what is she going to eat. So there's a lot of things like how can we sneak extra fiber or vegetables into this pasta? Like how can we, it's a lot of how can we get her to eat this? So that's a lot of what dictates how we cook now. And in terms of like it's very our schedules vary greatly from week to week, just because of like we freelance, and we also have like these businesses that we maintain. So it really is whoever has the time to cook a meal that day is who's cooking. And it's great because we can both trust each other to take that load off if someone's busy. So we know that there's going to be food on the table one way or another. So that is a great load off of both of our minds, just knowing that no matter how busy we are, that aspect of the day will get taken care of. Yeah, so we like tag in, tag out. It's a lot of, we love frozen vegetables in this house. It has become a staple because we can't really go to we can't go to the farmer's market every time anymore. That was how we used to shop before. It was just this leisurely stroll through the farmer. We don't have time for that. So frozen vegetables saves time because you don't need to prep them because they're ready to go. You don't even need to wash them because they're ready to go. Don't have to worry about them rotting in your fridge because they're in your freezer. So really lean a lot on frozen vegetables these days. And our kid really likes beans in all forms. So beans and rice. So beans and rice in some form makes an appearance pretty regularly, but that's how we try and navigate it. Cause like the two things she'll always eat pasta, she'll always eat rice. So it's all about how can we disguise other things in that world and then have her just eat it.
So I want to go back to, in the beginning, you were talking about how you really kind of lost yourself when you were in fine dining, you were grieving your mother, like that was the real focus for you. And then this book is, Hello Home Cooking, coming back to home cooking. I'd love to kind of go back in time, and what was that process like for you to rediscover home cooking, and how did it unfold in your home life and your personal life when you decided to open that back up for yourself? For
the people watching this on video, so this is the book right here. This is the Madonna book. So you could see this is electrical tape on the side because the binding has been so weathered that there's multiple layers of electrical tape. And you can see in the book, there's a bunch of handwritten recipes, and there's also like these really cool, like old school newspaper clippings of various recipes. And my mother was trilingual, so there's like recipes written in Portuguese, Spanish, and English in here. So it took me a minute to decipher everything. I speak Spanish and English okay, but the Portuguese I used to speak it a lot better, so that takes a minute. That took me a minute to decipher. The first recipe I made out of there were the cheese empanadas, just because those were, if I were to pick one distinctive food memory that reminds me of that era and my mom, it would probably be cheese empanadas, because there's a lot of ingredient specific things in Bolivian cuisine that is hard to replicate outside of Bolivia. But cheese empanadas was, although she had to make some tweaks because you can't find the same Bolivian cheese there is a similar cheese in the Middle East called Akawi cheese that we could find pretty easily. So she would make it with that cheese, and she would always make these cheese empanadas when she needed comfort and she was feeling really homesick and just wanted to connect both her and us to her family back home. Just because it's like, you could always tell. So when we came home and there were warm empanadas on the table, it's like, oh, mom misses home. So that was the first recipe I made out of the notebook, because I was kind of feeling in a similar place. Like I was missing home. I wanted ties to my family. And once I started making that, it sounds very, very cheesy, but it's very, very much a ratatouille type moment, where when the food critic tries the ratatouille for the first time, and then it kind of zooms out, and then he has that memory of him eating the ratatouille as a child. It's very much like that. Like the first time, because I hadn't had that cheese empanada for probably 13 years, like 13 to 15 years. So having that again instantly transported me back to that time and place, and just feeling comforted, and like feeling like things were going to be okay, and like feeling that my mom was there to like let me know that things were going to be okay. So that was the immediate light switch of like, wow, this has a lot of power. And and myself too, like I have a very interesting and unique background, and it was crazy to not utilize that in my professional life as well. So it kind of felt like this whole time I was cooking with one hand tied behind my back. And now that I've like rediscovered these hidden things that have been in there all the time, it like felt like I'm a complete cook now. So I'm a much better cook both at home and professionally than I have ever been, because I do have those memories, those flavors, those techniques to draw on that I haven't been drawing on for so long.
That's really touching. And I know like it's a very hard time for restaurants and there's a lot of headwinds, but one thing that does seem kind of positive is for a long time it was very much like, well, there's the French way or there's the brigade way, and there's, it's not about you, it's about the repetition, it's about the ingredient. And it does feel like, this next sort of generation and era, we're allowing cooks to infuse some of themselves into their food, even in the highest echelons of fine dining. And I'm just talking, but you're living it. So I'm curious if you feel that, or like how you're thinking about bringing this, new era of your home cooking, which of course is professional in the media sense of it, but you're also like a hardcore restaurant guy. Like, how are you thinking about bringing this into the other part of your professional life?
There's a lot of very interesting things happening in food now. Now, like you were saying, it used to be very cut and dry. Like you're going to a French restaurant, you're going to a Thai restaurant, you're going to a Chinese restaurant. But now you're seeing the emergence of a lot of like, I'm not the biggest fan of the term just because it's like a fusion or like third culture kids. Like it's like third culture is like the new fusion word. Like you throw it around. It's like, I feel like anyone with like quote unquote interesting background, they just kind of paint with this third culture thing where it's like you lose a lot of nuance where you just like slap a label on something like that. But there are a lot of people with that background and that experience that are coming out and doing their own personal spins on dishes. Like a new sandwich spot just opened up in the East Village that is a Filipino sandwich shop. And like the whole premise behind it is that Filipino cuisine is by nature this huge melting pot of cuisines from all over the world just by nature, because it was such a common pathway for so many different countries. And so the one thing that never made it to the Philippines were sandwiches. Like it just culturally never made it there, never took off. So it's like, okay, let's open a Filipino sandwich shop. So that's like an entirely novel idea that also like incorporates traditional Filipino cooking, but in this entirely new format. Like stuff like that to me is very, very exciting and really shows the power of like, hey, let people cook what they're excited about. And let's like pull like the tradition blinders down. Like I think there's also for a long time, people only valued traditional cooking that if they weren't familiar with it, they only wanted the traditional version of it. Like that's how they got like new cultures. And like, yes, that is great. That is good. People should keep those traditional versions of things alive, but that's not everyone's story. Just because I didn't grow up eating those strictly traditional Bolivian Egyptian dishes doesn't make me any less Bolivian or Egyptian. Like I ate Egyptian dishes, but it was made by my Bolivian mom using Qatari ingredients, and same with Bolivian food. Like, so I'm already eating traditional food through all these different lenses, and that's what's traditional to me, and that doesn't make it any less valid. So that's I think that's an important point that I think people are starting to get, that like, hey, you can eat traditional versions of food through these new exciting lenses, through people's experiences, and that's just as exciting, that's just as valid as these super traditional versions of these foods.
I think we went through this time where it was, I like said the word fusion in the beginning, and it makes sense that there was a big backlash against that, because it was a lot of times just like a very like moneyed white guy being like, and now I also make this cuisine. And so I understand that, but it has been very cool to see this evolution where we're now giving permission to have these richer stories. And I think for cooks to be able to experiment and not be fearful of, am I doing this exactly the right way? Like there's a way to show respect and deference and not appropriate while also creating these new things and evolve. And it's very clear how you do that in your food. I'm also curious with your, as you called it, your interesting background. We talk a lot on the show about entrepreneurship in the food space too. And I'm really curious how your background has informed the way that you think about your business and how you have your hands in all these different pots. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach the food business and the many ways that you do, both in media and restaurants?
Oh, absolutely. It is, like you mentioned, it is a very tough time for restaurants right now. Both like costs are skyrocketing, rents are skyrocketing, labor's at an all-time high. So it's like the main thing with managing a restaurant now is all about cost management. Like honestly, that is the driving force for a lot of things. And you can see it in a lot of restaurants in New York City as well. Like there's a lot less, for lack of a better term, like weird, fun, like out of the box type dining. And there's a lot more half chickens. You're seeing a lot. This is the summer of the half chicken in New York City, just because it's like, it's a sure bet. You want something that you know people are going to come in and eat. Like it's New York has always been a meat and potatoes town, and is more so than ever right now. So you'll see a burger on most menus. You'll see a half chicken on most menus. You'll see like these certain things that you need to hit. We don't do that. The fun part to me is finding out how can I hit those pleasures that people want without giving them that exact thing. So it's like, it's about how can you play in this sandbox without giving the same thing that everyone else is doing. We have Strange Delight is a New Orleans inspired seafood restaurant, predominantly seafood. We do serve some meat and things, but it's like, it's really fun to me to figure out this puzzle of like, how can you present something new yet familiar and comforting, and something that people will get and not miss their half chicken or burger. And then that's very, very, very similar to what I was trying to do with the book as well. And it's an argument I try and make is like, these dishes are informed by my personal experience and background, but you will see yourself in a lot of it, and you will find comfort in a lot of these dishes, whether you may not have had this exact dish before, but it will evoke feelings of something that you may be familiar with. And that will give you the same comfort and nostalgia that eating that thing may give you.
I heard you say, I wrote this down, if that cheese is molten, it's going to make you feel good about life. And I feel like that sort of encapsulates that. Can you elaborate on that, on that sentiment?
Oh, of course. So I really wanted to think on comfort, nostalgia, what kind of food when you're having a crappy day, or you just are in need of like a hug in the form of a dish. What is it that gets you there? And 9 times out of 10, if you see molten, stretchy cheese, you're immediately going to feel better about life. And you can even see that on socials. Like nothing beats a cheese pull. Like that's all the social data you need. Like you pop a cheese pull on a reel or a story or on a video, people will lose their minds. People will get very excited. Like if your body allows you to eat cheese, chances are that you love it.
It's a global language. Like we get it. We get it.
Everyone gets cheese. Like, and it's such a powerful unifying thing that it's really cool that this, like, just this stretchy thing evokes this such strong emotion from so many different people. It's like, it's pretty magical.
That comfort element is such a through line in the book. Can you share a couple other recipes, or touch on a recipe or two that you think really exemplify that comfort?
I'll go for old comfort and new comfort. So like something that I personally always find very, very comforting, similar to the cheese empanadas, because it reminds me of a specific place and time that I remember very, very fondly, which are summers in Bolivia that I would spend with my family. This family there. It was quite expensive to go from Doha to Bolivia, so we would go there every other summer, and I looked forward to those summers the second we came back. And there are these cheese tapioca buns called cuñapés. They're ubiquitous throughout South America. They're in Argentina. They have them in Brazil. They're called pão de queijo. They're called chipas and other. So it's
My kids love them. It's like one of their favorite. We have a lot of Brazilian friends, and that's like the go-to.
it's amazing. It's this like magical texture because you get the cheesiness from the cheese, but you also get this extra pull from the tapioca, which stretches almost like mochi. So it's like you're getting that like chewy cheesiness, like doubled just because you're also getting a similar texture from the tapioca. So I have a version of those tapioca buns that I cross with garlic bread, and they are so good. They are so good. And they're super easy because you build it fully in a blender. So you throw a bunch of things in the blender, you blend it, and then you bake them in muffin pans, and they kind of pop. They're these really big, really crispy on the outside, chewy on the inside buns, and they're so satisfying to eat. So that's something that brings me a lot of comfort. But like a relatively newer dish that's become a comfort dish in our family is the toasted spaghetti with parm and black beans. And this is legitimately a dish that we have once a week in one way or another. So this is a version on a Mexican dish called sopa seca, which means dry soup. And it's essentially pasta cooked risotto style. So it's creamy, and then you can throw a bunch of things in it. And that's why I love it. Like I mentioned before, kids love eating pasta, and you can hide all kinds of fun things in it. So I like break thin spaghetti, toast it until it's golden brown, and then just add stock, cook it risotto style until it's creamy. And then you finish it with beans, some greens, and then a little cheese, a little sour cream, mix it together. And it's like so easy to put together. It takes 20 minutes and it's so satisfying. It's like this, the pasta, since you toast it, it doesn't turn into mush. So it still has a really nice texture. And it's like, our daughter loves it. We love it. So it's just become a comforting staple in our home.
I cannot wait to make both of those recipes. My family's going to go crazy. And maybe I'll actually hand my husband the recipe for the pasta dish, because I feel like he could even maybe handle that as the non-cook. I'll do the dishes for one night and let him tackle it. Okay, I had one more question before the busy brain section. So I read, and forgive me, I think it was on Substack, but it's this very sweet, well-written note from your wife, kind of just glazing you and gassing up your book and being like, he hates this, he doesn't want to do this. But obviously it's part of the gig. And I'm just curious, how has it been going for you? And like, what has the experience been like of you wrote this beautiful book and now getting out and having to tell everybody about it?
This is the hardest part of the process for me. So I enjoyed writing the book. I enjoyed testing the recipes. It actually felt very healing for me, because there's something, it's one thing like sitting in private, talking to your therapist about your grief and how you're feeling, but it's another thing about putting all these things in paper, essentially writing, like some of the head notes almost feel like journal entries just because they are so personal and talk a lot about how I'm feeling at different times and why these dishes are important to me, and giving them out to the world. It almost feels like these things no longer belong to you. You've put them all into this box and you've kind of released them into the wild to kind of fend for themselves. And there's something really nice and comforting and healing about that process. And I feel like I'm a completely different person after the book. Emotionally and mentally, I'm a lot more stable, which is very, very nice. Yeah, positive, very, very, very good. So if you have like all these things in your head that are dragging you down, write a cookbook about it, release it out into the world, it'll be gone. Big suggestion, a lot cheaper than therapy as well. And so that part was great, but there's something about seeing people in person that shifts it. And I'm naturally a very self-critical person. It takes a lot for me to accept compliments or even believe them or feel like they are real. So a lot of this comes like when I had like this autoimmune disease when I was a kid. There was I spent a lot of time in the hospital. I grew up around a lot of nurses like that. That was kind of my childhood for a long time. And with that came a lot of pity from especially older people, from adults, the adults in my life. So that is something that I am very, very conscious of, and something that I do not like, which makes me distrustful of a lot of complimentary things. Is this real? Is this pity? Like, what's going on here? So that was something I was very apprehensive about. I wasn't sure how I would process, because if people are going to your book talk, they're not going because they hate you. They're going to like tell you nice things, hopefully, unless they really hate you. Then they're putting a lot of effort into their hate. So it's like I wasn't sure how I would process that. But going on tour and seeing and meeting the people who, a lot of them already had read the book and were very excited for it, and it felt so genuine and nice that it kind of caught me off guard, and it just felt really nice, which is...
You weren't expecting that?
Which I was not expecting. I'm like, wow, this is very genuine. This is very nice. What is happening here? I don't understand these feelings I don't understand these nice things that people are saying. And it does not seem like they were not being sincere. These felt like very genuine compliments. And that kind of also did some healing in me as well, and made me a little bit more receptive to accepting someone saying something nice about work that I've done.
That's incredible. And thank you for sharing that story about your childhood. I don't want to project my own stuff onto your experience.
That's what we're doing here.
But it's so interesting to hear you say the healing part. So I just turned in the first draft of my first cookbook.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So much work ahead of me. I know.
It's just the beginning.
So much work ahead. Everyone's like, oh my God, you're done. I'm like, no, I think I'm just getting started, actually. But it's also called Not From Concentrate, and it is kind of focused on my ADHD and all these coping strategies that I learned over time that I didn't realize were strategies and I thought were just my personality. But anyways, I went into it feeling a little bit cynical of like, ADHD is so hot right now. I'm finally going to find a way into this, industry I've been like on the periphery of for 20 years. Like, fine, I'll monetize my trauma if that's what it takes.
Hey, you got kids. You got to do what you got to do.
Figure it out. Okay. I don't want a private chef until I'm 80. So I wrote the book proposal and I just like poured out of me. And when people have been asking about it, I'm like, no, it's been so healing in a way that like I absolutely did not expect. And being sort of forced to confront these difficult, painful things that maybe you sort of like wrapped up and set aside. Yeah, it really has been such a healing experience. And I would recommend anybody, whether they are planning to try to get a cookbook published or not, to like sit down with a pen and paper and find a lens to revisit some of these difficult things, because it's been a really healing process. That's the only way I can think to say it. So I love hearing that was the case for you as well.
Oh, healing wise, it'll only get better the deeper you get into this whole process.
Unless haters come to the book talk, and then then
it's something else.
But presumably, yeah. So, anyways, yes, very healing. And what about like the self? What about the rest of it? So, has it all been positive once you sort of like got over that? Like, oh, this is hard to hear and now I'm just being selfish. And I'm like, what's hard about it, Ham? Tell me your secrets. But how has the rest of it been? I guess.
Well, with the tour itself, the hardest part was being away from home. I'm not away from home ever, really. I don't really travel much, just because there's so many things tying me at home, like the restaurant, my family. Like it's like most of my work is local, so I rarely work outside of town. So like the actual traveling part was difficult, but at the same time, like I went to Seattle for the first time. I went to San Francisco for the first time, and I absolutely love these places. Like the dining's amazing, the people are amazing. I've actually been to San Francisco, the Bay Area, twice in the past month and a half, and I love it so much. I'm like considering. Should we move there? It's like it's pretty nice out there. The produce is amazing. The weather's it's fantastic. But it's like, I would say, aside from the traveling and being away from the family, that that's the hardest part, especially because like my daughter and I are quite close, and that was difficult for both of us. But the actual experience of talking to people about the book and just seeing how excited everyone is, and just getting outside of your daily routine was great, was really nice.
Yeah, that's really hard as a parent too, to get some fresh perspective. And I find it's so helpful when you can do it. Another question for you is, have you always considered yourself a writer? Like, was this something that you saw happening for you, or a place that you thought you'd put your energy? Because you're such a talented writer, and I'm curious how you got there.
I never considered myself a writer. I always considered myself so when I was a kid, there's two things I wanted to do. I either wanted to become a chef or become a professional wrestler. Those are my two dream jobs. So I never considered myself a writer, but I've always been interested in how writing works. I've always been a huge reader ever since I was a kid. Like if I had free time, I was probably reading something. So I was a huge reader. I love also reading scripts of movies and TV shows that I really like, and kind of thinking, like, especially with comedy scripts, like thinking about how jokes get built and how plot lines get put together and how you like work a twist into a movie. So I've always been very interested in how writing gets put together. But I never really thought it would be something that I would get to do. So I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity to do it. And now that I've done it, I definitely do see myself writing more. Maybe not exclusively cookbooks. Maybe I'd like to try and write other things, just because it's something that I found that I really do enjoy doing. And hopefully that's a next phase that's in the cards.
I'm sure it is. Do you listen to Mike Birbiglia's Working It Out podcast?
No, I have not.
Okay, you have to. So I'm obsessed with it. But it's all about the creative process, like with comedians. So they talk about working through jokes, working through writing. It's like, if you're a creative person, it's fantastic. Okay, so last part of the podcast, we always end the same way, which is with the busy brain section. And so I'm going to ask 2 questions, maybe the only succinct questions I've asked you in this entire hour. So get ready. Get ready, Ham. The first one is, how do you spark creativity in the kitchen when you're feeling uninspired?
Eat something. Whenever I'm feeling uninspired, I look up a place that I'm excited about. I have dinner. I just eat something that I find exciting. That kind of sparks that creativity in me. Like, I've been food-wise, I've kind of been in a creative rut. I don't know if it's mostly because my brain has been occupied with book stuff, and so I was having trouble. And when I was in San Francisco for this pop-up that I did with Burdell out there, an amazing restaurant, and we went to the Saturday farmers market together, and it's an incredible farmers market. They have amazing produce that made me so jealous. Like, to go to a farmers market and see citrus that was grown by a farmer, because it's like you don't see citrus in farmers markets here. Yeah, and so there's these amazing citrus and these dried chilies and blueberries and strawberries and guavas and cherimoyas and all these things that I was tasting and picking, and just that experience of being in a different environment, tasting all these delicious things, kicked up that creativity in me again. And ever since I've been back, I felt the juices flowing again. So it's like, yeah, whatever I'm feeling like I'm in a creative rut in general, not even just with food, like I'll either pop on a show that I think is really well written or well put together, like Arrested Development or a 30 Rock, like something like that. It's like, I like a lot of comedies. Like, it's like, I feel like it's a very underappreciated medium. It's very difficult to make someone laugh, and especially a show like 30 Rock, where there's so many jokes packed in 1 minute. I think it's just so unbelievably impressive.
It's masterful.
Yeah, it blows my mind every time. So yeah, I just either eat something I'm impressed by, watch something I'm impressed by, and then it kind of makes me feel a little aspirational. It's be like, okay, let me get into the right mindset. And I don't know if I can say this, a an edible always helps as well.
You can 100% say that. You can 100% say that. Sometimes you got to just shift your perspective a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay, second part of that is how do you calm the chaos? And it can be physical chaos or mental chaos.
I was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid, but I've only recently chosen to do something about it. So that's the. So I like you. I also thought all these things were just aspects of my personality. It's just who I was, and then later, Sola actually started pointing these out as like, that is not just a personality trait. That is ADHD, my friend. I'm like, oh, so it's like, so for me, a very tight daily routine helps with the chaos that's around me, and an incredibly detailed calendar. I like function in my day-to-day tied to my calendar. I need to have everything in there. I check it I check it every 10 minutes just because I panic. I always panic that I'm forgetting something or that I get my days mixed up. So I'm constantly checking my calendar, making sure that I'm not doing something out of order. So between that, because like I said, the rest of my days often change. I rarely do the same thing 2 days in a row, but if I can keep my morning the same and just have a very detailed calendar, I feel like I can calm the chaos. And I also try and keep the section that I'm working on like neat. Like if something's out of place, it snowballs and like my whole brain is out of place. So I need where I'm working to be tidy. I need to know what I'm working on that day, and like all that kind of comes together and helps me battle the chaos.
Those are amazing tips. And yeah, I was diagnosed as a child and then put it away and ignored my ADHD for many years. And it wasn't until I wrote this book proposal, or shortly beforehand, that I was like, oh, I'm going to actually deal with this as an adult. And it's been great because instead of being just like soaked in shame and feeling bad that I have ADHD, I'm like, oh, it's like a thing and there's tools in the toolbox.
It's also, I also believe that it is the cause and source of the creative powers that I've got. A lot of, like you said, like a lot of people feel shame with ADHD, and there's like this, I'm not going to get political, but I'm just going to say there's like this, there is this kind of shaming of autism in general happening right now. But I think like we need these people. Like these are the people that think outside the box, create things that are new, create things that are exciting, that innovate. Like a lot of the exciting, interesting findings in science or in art, in whatever that may be, come from people that think differently. Like that is the source of a lot of exciting things that we enjoy. So it's like, I don't think it's about eliminating these things. It's about knowing how to harness its powers. And I feel like that's something that I've learned to both accept and learn how to do a lot better, because I feel like when learning how to harness it is really when you get into a great creative flow and start doing really exciting things.
Absolutely. That was a huge revelation for me, that they were two sides of the same coin. Like it's the same thing that makes me creative and resilient and all of that. It's like that wouldn't exist without it. And it's been interesting to hear different people's perspectives, because there's some folks that are just like, it's a pure superpower. I don't totally feel that way. I really feel like it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I had an interesting chat with Spencer Horowitz from Hadim. And we like did not agree on it. He's like, I think like the superpower thing, it's like, I think it's kind of dangerous. And I was pushing him a little bit. And I'm like, so you think that like only the negatives are ADHD, but like, what about like all these other crazy, there's so many. And so we had a really interesting discussion about that too. But it's cool to talk to other creatives and chefs that, are realizing this about themselves and figuring out how to, use their strengths and tackle our losing our keys and our wallets and
yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
Forgetting what you went into the room for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We're going to keep a tight calendar and we're going to tap into our creativity. Ham, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. The book is, of course, Hello Home Cooking. Cannot wait to make just about every recipe in here. Where can we find you online besides, buying your cookbook?
You can find me at Hamagram on Instagram. You can find me at Your Moment of Ham on TikTok. You can find Sola and I at Sola and Ham on YouTube. And you can often find me at Strange Delight in Fort Greene.
Amazing.
Lots of places.
so many places. Thank you so much, Ham. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was a great chat.
and you. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ham. And you guys know what I'm going to ask next, right? Have you subscribed to the Not From Concentrate newsletter? It's on Substack. You can sign up at katherinesmart.com, and it's a great way to get recipes from our guests and hear from me and stay in touch. And also, you can always email me at hello@katherinesmart.com. If you have feedback or questions or show ideas, I would love to hear from you. I read every email. Again, that's hello@katherinesmart.com. Thanks so much, you guys. I'll see you next time. Not From Concentrate is distributed by PRX and produced by me, Katherine Smart, with audio and video production by Kevin O'Connell. Our associate producer is Allie Miller, and the theme music is by Kylie Daly. Thanks.